All right, folks, we've been telling you about the sad debacle at Texas A&M University with the hiring or the screwed up hiring of Kathleen McElroy. So here was the deal. Texas Tribune has been reporting this. So Kathleen McElroy, esteemed journalist, grossly overqualified to run the Department of Journalism at Texas A&M. Used to have one when I was there, got rid of it. Now they're bringing it back, okay? So set 5-year contract, 10-year, all that good stuff. Texas A&M makes a big deal out of it. They have a signing ceremony. We got the video show it. Big hoopla. Again, hiring her. Well, then all of a sudden, that's when the drama started. Then the president got involved, and the Board of Regents got involved. And then that led to changes in the contract. Then she tells what happened. Then all of a sudden, this thing blows up, goes public. President Kathleen Banks, she starts lying. What she didn't know, she wasn't involved. Well, that was all lies. She eventually resigns. Last week, the Texas A&M Board of Regents announced a $1 million settlement with Kathleen McElroy. They also announced, they also apologized for what took place. And so what then happened was, they released this internal report, this internal review. Ooh, and that's when things got real interesting, folks. And so they began to lay out in this internal review what went wrong and what happened and statements. And so then we begin to discover the lies and the deceit that existed. So all the stuff that we were hearing, and it was so funny, I remember when Kathleen Banks, when she addressed the faculty senate, and I had posted on social media, she was lying. I had a couple of people hit me and they say, well, Roland, how do you actually know she's lying? And I'm like, I've been a journalist for a long time. I know when folks start lying because they start making stuff up, and then it just makes no sense whatsoever. Well, now we know that. And now we know, and the report shows that she was lying. It shows that she was extremely involved. The report shows that Kathleen Banks wanted to defer the hiring of McElroy to after the legislature. We also know that she then said to the interim dean of the College of Liberal Arts, did he delete text messages between them? We also know that, based upon the report, that she then also made comments such as, we dodged a bullet. How dare she? Why would she go to the media? On and on and on and on and on. And we know that because of internal review. But what really stands out to me is that in this internal review, we also begin to see the comments from members of the Board of Regents. And so what then happened, again, so this right here is called Memo on Kathleen McElroy. And so you can see this whole thing at www.tamu.edu/internal-review/. Let me say it again. And y'all really ought to go watch it. Well, go look at it. www.tamu.edu/internal-review/. It is absolutely stunning because it says in here, it gives you the whole timeline. What actually happened. It shows you, again, text messages exchanged where they talked about the publicity and things along those. It says right here. Later in text messages exchanged on May 11th and 12th, 2023, Bermudez, who was the interim dean, conferred with Blanton, who was then the head of the department, and indicated that he had spoken with Banks, the president, and that she preferred not to have any publicity on the McElroy appointment until after the legislative session ended. Blanton expressed his concern that it could result in negative publicity for the university if we ask a famous black journalist not to share her exciting decision with the world. Not only that, y'all, a famous black journalist who is a graduate of the university. Bermudez reminded Blanton there was no formal offer letter yet and explained his understanding of Banks, the president's motivation. In the text, quote, bottom line is the NYT connection is poor optics during this particular legislative session. So what Banks was saying was, she was saying, oh, no. Don't mention this because she worked for the New York Times. These white conservatives in Texas, oh my God, if the New York Times, the liberal New York Times, don't say it. Don't say it. Back to my iPad. McElroy was not informed that her hiring was being delayed due to the legislative session. She was told that the delay was due to administrative requirements and the need to process paperwork. She was lying. She was lying. You go through here, offer letter arrival, was supposed to be tenure, all those things. Then all of a sudden, Texas Scorecard published an article entitled Aggies Hire New York Times Diversity Advocate to Head Journalism Program. Oh, all of us, that was it. So then this conservative website begins to attack her as the DEI queen. And that's when things begin to happen. Then it says, back to the iPad, the Texas Scorecard article generated numerous calls and emails to the president's office at TAMU, including from the Rudder Association as a right-wing organization, and other former students, raising questions about why a DEI proponent would be hired to serve as director of the new journalism program, not the fact that she had more than 20 years in the New York Times, not the fact that she was a top editor, not the fact that she was a former head of the journalism department at the University of Texas, tops in the states, not any of that. Oh, she was a DEI advocate. Let me be perfectly clear, y'all. The Texas A&M journalism department was weak when I was there. It was. It wasn't even in the top. Let me be perfectly clear with y'all. The Texas A&M journalism department when I was there was weaker than the University of Texas, North Texas State, Sam Houston, the University of Houston, and Texas Southern. I know, because I went to all of them. I saw their programs. We didn't even have a TV station. We didn't even have cameras for our television class. All we had was, we didn't have any radio station. All we had was a school newspaper. I'm speaking from experience. I didn't go there because the journalism school. I went there because my brother was there. It was easy for my parents because we had 3 kids in college at the same time. It was easy for them financially to have us in one place at one time. That's why I went. I was a top student in my magnet school of communications. I was number 1. I could have went to Texas, Northwestern, Missouri, Syracuse. I couldn't afford to. That's why I went. That and a scholarship. That's why I went. But I digress. So you go through this here, and all of a sudden, the review talks about how these regents started getting involved. Oh, in an apparent response to regent inquiries on June 16th, Banks informed Bermudez in a telephone call that there was a potential problem with McElroy obtaining tenure at TAMU. From that conversation, the idea of shifting the position to a non-tenure track professor of practice position emerged. It's unclear if Banks or Bermudez first suggested it. And here's the crazy thing. McElroy was actually fine with that. She just simply wanted to move forward. But Bermudez actually told her, referred to DEI hysteria, and made a comment about McElroy being a black woman who worked at the New York Times. And that's when it went on. And what then ensued was absolute nonsense. What then ensued, folks, was some of the craziest things you've ever seen, massive lies taking place, and it leads to $1 million settlement with Kathleen McElroy. So these folks actually thought that with their apology, that was good enough. They thought with $1 million settlement, that was good enough. Here in their report, these are the documents. They list the emails. They list the emails, everything in here, all the emails in here. You name it. All of this stuff, her letter from her, all of this stuff, background, you name it, all of this stuff, it's all in the report. Now here's what's hilarious. And I had an Aggie, some dude named Don, who the hell was he? He sent me talking about how he was class of 59 and he did some research and he didn't like her DEI background and we don't have a black army or a white army, we got a U.S. Army. There's some dude named Don Parsons, some 86-year-old white Aggie sending me this email complaining. I'm like, dude, I said, you don't know jack about journalism, you don't jack about DEI, what the hell are you talking about? But see, here's what's so funny. All these so-called conservatives in Texas, fiscal conservatives, y'all, they had to pay a settlement to Kathleen McElroy of $1 million. Go to my iPad. Y'all, this is what she was gonna get paid. First of all, they recommended a base salary of $150,000. Let me tell y'all something, ain't no way in the hell I'd take $150,000. No way in hell. Now, she was already at the University of Texas making $196,000, okay? So these fools had to pay her 5 times more money in a settlement than what she's making right now. Let me explain something to y'all. If they had paid her the $196,000 salary, they could have spent $1 million and had her for the next 5 years running the department, taking advantage of her expertise, yet what they just did was waste $1 million of taxpayer money to have to pay a settlement. I am a native Texan. I still own my home in the Dallas area. I'm still registered to vote there. They wasted my money. Mama and daddy still in Texas, taxpayers. My brother, Texas, taxpayer. My 3 sisters, Texas, taxpayers. Aunts and uncles and cousins and nieces and nephews, they have wasted taxpayer money because crazy, deranged white conservatives lied about this woman. And oh my God, we don't like DEI. But y'all don't mind DEI on Saturdays. Y'all don't mind those black 5-star and 4-star recruits running up and down the field. Y'all don't mind DEI on the basketball court in March Madness. Y'all didn't mind DEI on the golf team that just led to the semifinals for the women's golf championship. Y'all don't mind DEI in sports, but now y'all got a problem with DEI. But if you continue to go through, just don't go yet, 'cause I'm gonna pull this up. Because if you start going through the documents, there are other things that you begin to see. You begin to see in here comments being made by certain people. You begin to see what people's what a real position is and their real standing is when it comes to comments. So let me do this for y'all, because y'all gonna love this here. What I'm about to show you are actual text messages that took place between 2 members of the Texas A&M Board of Regents. Y'all, these are actual text messages. And this is from Rusty Surratt on Twitter. It says text exchanges between Texas A&M Board of Regents Jay Graham and David Baggett. Graham wants the new journalism program at A&M to turn out, quote, high-quality conservatives, quote, to help direct our message. First of all, show the Board of Regents. You will see right there who they are. You will see David Baggett and Jay Graham. Yep, David Baggett and Jay Graham. You see them right there. So here they are. And so they're busted in. So the text messages are in the report. So look at this here. Some journalists with conservative values into the market. This won't happen with someone like this leading the department. Listen to this idiot, David Baggett. Now again, y'all, this is a member of the Texas A&M Board of Regents. This is what he is saying to another member of the Texas A&M Board of Regents. And let me just tell you who David Baggett is, okay? Because he's the managing partner of Opportune LLP, a leading global business advisory firm focused on adding value to clients across multiple industries with preeminence in energy. He has more than 40 years of professional experience in the energy space. None in journalism, none in media. This is what he actually puts in the text message. Based on limited info, I agree. Time out. You had limited info? You remember the Board of Regents? Oh, Jay Graham goes, they need to hear from all of us. This is unacceptable, and we can't allow it to happen. Kathy told us multiple times the reason we were going to combine arts and sciences, and it was cut off here, is again because they were trying to get rid of liberals. Oh, congrats, guys, ready to kick some booty. In regard to the info on journalism hire, I sent this to John and Kathy. Please tell me this isn't true, but since it is not April Fool's Day, I assume it is. I thought the purpose of us starting a journalism department was to get high-quality Aggie journalists with conservative values into the market. This won't happen with someone like this leading department. Uh-oh. Now you're busted. Why is this important? Because Jay Graham and David Baggett, you're members of the Texas A&M Board of Regents. You don't represent conservatives in Texas. You are supposed to be members of the Board of Regents for all of the schools in the system, including Prairie View. What that means is that these two individuals who want to only see conservative journalists are voting on matters impacting Prairie View A&M University and HBCU. What they are saying is, we don't represent anybody in Texas who is liberal or progressive. We only want to see conservative journalists. First of all, that ain't got nothing to do with who, what, where, when, how, and why. These two yahoos know nothing about journalism. These comments right here should disqualify them from being on the Texas A&M Board of Regents, and now I call for their resignations. And this is where black Aggies and other Aggies of conscience should say these two people cannot represent Aggies, cannot represent Texans on the Board of Regents because they have an ideological bent. Now look, we all know Texas A&M is a conservative university. But these two are basically saying we only want to see conservatives being taught at this school. You've got more than 70,000 students in the Texas A&M University ecosystem. We ain't even talking about the whole system. Yet these two are busted in text messages saying this. With limited info, I agree. These folks need to go. These folks cannot serve on this board with any distinction whatsoever, and it is time for Texas A&M graduates to have the guts to say they must go. And who am I most disappointed in? It's a whole lot of folk who I am very disappointed in. And you know who I'm disappointed in the most? Not those two yahoos. I'm disappointed in this man, this black man, Bill Mahomes, who became the first African-American chair of the Texas A&M Board of Regents. And this entire sad affair, he has been quiet. He's been saying nothing. He's made no public comment. Let me be clear. Oh, he's aware of what's going on because I sent him text message before I did this segment. And the same to Chancellor John Sharp. And the same to others at Texas A&M. Y'all want black folk out there repping the university. Y'all love to see us wearing the jerseys and the hats. You love to see Chris Middleton in the NBA. You love to see Myles Garrett in the NFL. You love to see Christian Kirk in the NFL. But what you're saying is we don't give a damn about black graduates if you try to come back and work for the university. And Bill Mahomes, you ain't said nothing. Bill Mahomes, have you checked your fellow board members? Bill Mahomes, have you told your fellow board members what their role and responsibility is if they do not solely represent conservative interests? In fact, Bill Mahomes, have you said there should not be an ideological bent in any conversations in the hiring of staff, in the hiring of faculty, in the curriculum, or any of that? You have said nothing. You have disappointed black former students. You have disappointed Aggies because leaders lead and they don't stay quiet. I'm speaking to somebody who's a member of the Texas A&M Journalism Ring of Honor. I'm speaking to somebody who was honored as the first black former student Impact Gala. So when you show up at our black former student events, why are you doing so if you're going to sit and be silent when these things happen? That was a black former student who they disrespected, and you, based upon the record, you have said nothing publicly. These two individuals, Graham and Baggett, must resign. I am not satisfied with $1 million settlement. Those two must go from the Board of Regents, and the pressure must be applied to put on them. And so here's what we're going to do. Every day, we are going to show you that phone number to Senator Dick Durbin. And every day, we are going to put the phone number and the email out of David Baggett and Jay Graham, and going to call on this audience to let them know it's time for them to go. Bill Mahomes, the pressure's on you to stand up and lead. The pressure's on you to come address black former students. And I dare say right now, Chairman Bill Mahomes, you and Chancellor John Sharp need to call a campus-wide meeting when school resumes to address this issue, and you should specifically address black students at the university and black former students. And I'll say it again to any athlete who's considering Texas A&M, as long as those two Board of Regents members remain, and as long as Texas A&M does not fully address this issue, I do not want to see any star athlete consider attending Texas A&M. Sign letters of intent with other universities. Trust me, if Texas A&M loses one 5-star prospect, loses one 4-star prospect, all of a sudden, somebody's going to wake up. Because it's abundantly clear that all they give a damn about are black bodies earning them millions on the football field and millions on the basketball court. They don't care about black Texans or black Aggies anywhere else. And just like those black football players in Mississippi said, I'm not playing as long as that Confederate emblem is on that state flag, that sucker was gone in a week. When those black players in Missouri said they were going to boycott, the president, the chancellor, out, who happened to be the former president of Texas A&M. Changes were made because the black athlete used their power and leveraged influence. I'm not satisfied with an apology. I'm not satisfied with $1 million settlement. More needs to be done to atone for this sordid affair. And nothing can move forward unless these two folk show their photos, unless Jay Graham and David Baggett resign from the Texas A&M Board of Regents. They have made it clear as to what their ideological focus is, and it is not education, and it is not all Texans. It is a partisan viewpoint, and they must go. Comments from Julian Malveaux. First, Omokongo, then Renita.
Well, these folks, they don't belong on the board, obviously. They have no business mixing academia with their political or conservative views. Quite frankly, I think that Bill Mahomes, he too needs to go. If he, as a black man, he's on that board, let's be clear, Roland, he's partially on that board because he is African American. Given that, he has to stand up for African American people. That includes the sister who they treated so badly, but also includes the students. So for him to be silent in the face of this disqualifies him as well. Now, the only argument I could give for keeping him would be the devil you know versus the devil you don't, who would they get instead? But university president gone, trustees need to go, he needs to go, and you, as a Texas A&M alum, Aggie, I guess y'all call yourselves, but as an alum, you deserve credit for shining light on this. A lot of people wouldn't. Shining light on this and making it clear that this black woman should not have been mistreated. She got her $1 million, but you're right, $1 million is not enough. It does not excuse the behavior, and there have to be consequences for the behavior that transcend money.
Congo.
I mean, you know, at what cost white supremacy, right? I mean, at what cost? How much longer are people going to play these games, and how much money are they willing to lose? You're talking about $1 million. You're talking about more prestige, you know, lost to the university. I remember when you first started talking about this, Roland, you said you learned more in your journalism school in high school and the work that you were doing there, and how the famous journalist there was like a country star before you got there. So all of the work that you've done to build it, and other people, and they just want to throw all of that away because this woman worked for the New York Times. And one of the things you also talked about, how they ignore, and they do this to all of us in all of our professions, ignore all of our other qualifications and single out one thing, that she worked for the New York Times. I remember hearing Keith Ellison talking about in Minneapolis, they spent over $100 million in police brutality settlements and lawsuits and the like, more money lost. You hear Ron DeSantis, everything that they're doing, they're about to lose AP courses, and more money is going to be lost. At what point are white people who are part of these organizations and part of these companies going to stand up and say enough already? They are suffering too. Lyndon B. Johnson said, I learned at a young age, if you can convince the poorest white person he's better than the best quote-unquote colored man, he won't realize you're picking his pocket. This is what's happening right now. And more white people need to be standing with you and with us and calling this nonsense out, because everybody's suffering when you support this type of ignorance. Who are they going to get to replace them? You're talking about the athletes and other people who need to protest as they should. Who's going to come and lead that department? Who's going to have the credibility to lead that? Those guys have to go. And I think, Roland Martin, this is probably just the beginning as it relates to more text messages and the like. Probably that whole board of regents is going to have to go once this is all said and done.
Renita.
When we first talked about this story, I said that this needed to be investigated and that the Board of Regents needs to be investigated to see if they had any dealings with this. I said that because I understand the powers that the Board of Regents has in every state and the power that they have over universities. As a former legislator, I'm going to say this investigation should not be done, and here's why. In that report, when I heard the phrase, we need to wait for this to happen until after legislative session is over, because this is poor optics for the legislative session. To me, what that tells me as a former lawmaker is that there are probably and likely legislators who were willing to abuse their legislative power, probably around funding for the university. In reference to hiring this person to be to work for the university. And that sounds petty. You say, oh, no, they probably wouldn't lose funding in the budget over a decision to hire someone. But no, I've seen legislators, at least in the Georgia legislature, and all these legislatures are the same across the nation. What's happening is one frequently happens in others. I have seen legislators openly talk about abusing legislative power for less than making a hire that they would not have selected. So the next step of this really needs to be to investigate, to find out, were there legislators who were directly putting pressure saying we will not give funding or we will reduce funding in the budget for your university if you do not make hires that we deem will help us advance our political ideology. That's what really needs to happen.
Absolutely. And so, folks, I'm telling you right now, I'm not backing down from this. You do not look. You don't see me wearing my Texas A&M ring. I have worn my Texas A&M ring every single day since 1990 when I got it. I'm not repping the university. My Texas A&M Journalism Ring of Honor has been removed from that mantle over there. You are not going to see me wearing Texas A&M gear, carrying the golf bag. Hell, I was playing golf the other day at a Texas A&M a golf ball in the bag. Damn sure didn't play with it. This is the whole thing right here. I need black former students and other former students, and I need black former student athletes and other former athletes to also stand up. I'm telling you right now, here's what I know in this country, and I am purposely putting race on it because they targeted this black woman because she was black. And as simple as this here, if you want to get the attention of white folks in this country, especially white conservatives, you mess with the money. And when black athletes say Texas A&M is off limits, when black high school players say, I am not going to a university where there's a hostile atmosphere if you are African American, or you're an African American who dares to open your mouth, or you're an African American who's not conservative, then they will only pay attention. And so I hope every parent of any player who is considering Texas A&M says no. Says no. We're not taking recruiting trips. We're not going to visit the campus. We're going to look other places. If that gets out, Jimbo Fisher will run to the Board of Regents and say, what the hell are y'all doing? I cannot compete. And I guarantee you, those same white conservatives, oh, they'll be up in arms, how dare they? But they don't want to go 5-7 again. And we all know Texas A&M and all of college football, you can't win without black players. You know it, and we know it. This is a moment where we don't back down and where we fight. And as my frat brother Vertner Woodson Tandy said, we will fight until hell freezes over, and then we will fight on the ice.